Hello, everyone. Today we're going to start the last topic of the semester. That's sonata form. So, sonata form, before we start discussing sonata form in detail, it is important to know that the term sonata form does not equal the term sonata. So, let's first know a little bit more about the sonata. A lot of you have heard of the term sonata. Some of you may even have played a piece that's called a sonata. Probably it was a sonata for piano, sonata for flute and piano, sonata for violin and piano, sonata for saxophone and piano. It's pretty much any instrument that you can think of, there is a sonata written for that instrument. And that is because the meaning for the term sonata has evolved over time, has changed over time. And in the beginning, it simply means a piece to be played. And that is as opposed to the term canzona, which means a piece to be sung. And that explains why vocalists have never sung a sonata, because a sonata is meant to be an instrumental piece. And as I said earlier, the meaning of the term evolved over time. And in the classical and romantic periods, a sonata evolved to mean a multi-movement composition for piano and a solo instrument. Let me write that down. So, classical and romantic eras, sonata evolved to mean a multi-movement composition for piano and a solo instrument. Okay, so that's enough about the brief background of the term sonata, because today our focus is on sonata form, not sonata, so we'll just stop there. So now that we know the difference between sonata form and the sonata, we'll now focus on our topic today, the sonata form. So why is a sonata form called a sonata form? So first, remember we earlier said a sonata is a multi-movement composition. So in this multi-movement composition, that's the sonata, the first movement of a sonata is almost always structured in the same form. And that became the sonata form. So again, the first movement of this multi-movement composition is almost always structured in the same form, hence the term sonata form. Okay, so sonata form is often found in the first movement of a sonata. And you probably have heard the term sonata allegro form. These two are interchangeable terms, sonata form and sonata allegro form. They're exactly the same thing. And why do some people call it sonata allegro form? It's because in the classical era, the first movement of the sonata is almost always in allegro, almost always in a fast tempo, hence the term sonata allegro form. Okay. But now we can just call it the sonata form. All right, so now we know where to find the sonata form, what it is. We'll learn about a little more about what's a sonata form. So let's take a quick look at this diagram that I created here. So a sonata form contains two major parts, and they're usually divided by repeat signs. So this is the entire movement that's constructed in sonata form. And as you can see, there are two sets of repeat signs dividing the piece into two major parts. The first part is the opening section of the sonata form movement, and that's called the exposition. In the classical period, the exposition is oftentimes repeated, so just like what I included here in the diagram. And that's also what we're going to focus on in this lesson. And the second part of the sonata form contains two sections. The first one, the development, and the second one, the recapitulation. In order to better understand this sonata form structure, we're now going to listen to a piece by Mozart. And to see this, to better understand the structure, the first part defined by the repeat sign, that's the exposition, and the second part defined by the second set of repeat signs that contains development and recapitulation. So the piece we're going to listen to is Mozart's Piano Sonata in G major, crucial number 283, just the first movement. And this can be found in your anthology. We're going to listen to it. I'm going to try to record it in this video capturing, but if the sound quality is not good enough, this is the YouTube link where you can find it on your own. Okay, so while we're listening to the piece, there are a few things that I'd like you to specifically focus on. Number one is to try to find these major sections: exposition, development, and recapitulation. And what will be a very clear clue for that? The repeat signs. So, wrong, spelled wrong. Repeat signs. So if you can find the repeat signs, that will be a very clear clue for you to tell where the boundaries are. Okay. And in addition to the repeat signs, which should be very easy to find, I would also like you to listen for the different keys. So within the exposition, we know that it's going to start in G major, as the title of the piece tells us. So we know for sure there's going to be something in G major, but what else? Does it stay in G major, or can you identify other keys? And you'll be able to see this, to find this better, identify this better if you can identify the cadences. So those are the things that I'd like you to listen for. In addition to that, in the second major part, which contains the development and the recapitulation sections, right now our priority is to identify where the recapitulation starts. And what exactly is in order to do that, you need to know what a recapitulation is. So recapitulation means the opening material, the exposition section being recapitulated, being repeated again after the development. Development section is where we'll see new material, we'll hear earlier material that's being developed, that's being presented in different ways, and also possibly in different keys. But at some point, the original material, thematic material, is going to return in the original home key. So that's how you identify a recapitulation. Opening material to return in with the original melodic material and in the home key. In other words, if you think you hear the opening melodic material but it's not in G major, you're probably still in the development section. So for recapitulation, we need to find both a double return, thematic return, and a tonal return. Okay, so that's the third thing that I'd like you to listen for as we listen to this. Okay, so one last time before we start listening, you're looking for the repeat signs to help you identify the major parts in the sonata form. You're also going to look for the different keys, particularly in the exposition section. We know for sure it starts in G major, but it doesn't stay in G major. So what other key is there in the exposition section? That's the second thing. And now the third thing you're listening for is, where does the recapitulation start? We know the recapitulation is going to be the second half of the second part, after the development section. And what are we looking for? We're looking for the double return, thematic and tonal return of the opening material. So, in other words, opening melodic material returning in the original G major. All right, so now that we know those are the three things we're going to listen for, let's start listening to Mozart Piano Sonata in G major, Kershaw 283, first movement.